Hey, so you want to be a PvP healer, but aren't exactly sure how to prioritize what to do. In this video, I highlight what I believe to be the top 5 most important roles as a PvP healer. Now, full disclaimer, this is not a character build guide, it is simply some general tips and tricks you need to keep in mind to be a more effective healer. Do know that ZeniMax, also known as the developers of Elder Scrolls Online, absolutely despises you and will do everything in their power to nerf you and make you ineffective. PvP healing is not particularly easy. Your healing potential is drastically decreased, more than half of what you're able to do in regular in-game content. I see PvP healers like air conditioners and offensive linemen in football, only noticed when they're not working. With that being said, thank you very much for tuning into my channel. Let's get started. So first rule, stay alive. You may be wondering why isn't the first rule to heal your teammates? You're a healer. That's your job, you fucking bum. Well, look at it this way. If you can't stay alive, you are of no use to your team. It's the same concept as when you're about to take off on a plane and the captain tells you to secure your oxygen mask before you secure your child's, should anything occur mid-flight. If you're passed out, now you can't secure your child's mask and you're both dead. So rule number 1, stay alive, because a dead healer is a useless healer. Now there are a few tips I have to stay alive during a PvP encounter, aside from just healing yourself. So that first tip, eat stat boosting food and have potions quick slotted before you even consider entering any PvP area. Not eating food before you enter PvP effectively puts you at a 4 to 5k handicap for all 3 of your main attributes: health, magicka, and stamina. Don't ever do PvP without doing this first step. Don't be a wiener. Now the second tip I can give you is to increase your physical and spell resistances to maximize your damage reduction percentage from enemy players, as well as increasing your critical resistance to reduce critical chances from enemy attacks. Now, a few things to keep in mind. Wearing heavy armor takes away the beneficial passives from the light armor skill line, which decreases your magicka recovery and cost reduction for healing spells. So my tip to you is to use sets that you can increase your ability to sustain your magicka. Now, some of these examples include using the Eternal Vigor set, which is great for sustain, or using a heavy armor Seducer's armor, which is great for magicka sustain, or crafting fortified brass light armor, which allows you to have access to the light armor skill line passives, but also give you the tankiness required to help you to stay alive. Now the third tip, throw in your HOTS, aka heal over time spells before you engage in battles. That way, you won't have to waste as much magicka casting very costly burst heals during fights. Tip 4, use damage shields if you're at full health to increase your damage mitigation. And tip 5, use cover, meaning to take advantage of the trees you see, walls, rocks, buildings, basically anything that can break the line of sight from enemies so they can't lock onto you and attack you and kill you. Alright, so now that we have got done explaining the first rule of your healing responsibilities, we now get to the very blatantly obvious one, which is healing your teammates, keeping them alive. Once you've perfected your ability to stay alive, you can now go on to perfecting your healing skills for your team. Now, a lot of new healers, including myself when I was new, tend to make one casting mistake that's very detrimental to their team. And that mistake is overcasting expensive burst heals, which include Breath of Life from the Templar healing skill line or Enchanted Growth from the Warden healing skill line. Now keep in mind, I ain't saying you shouldn't be casting the fucking shit out of those burst heals, but it is absolutely imperative that you have your HOTS down on the ground where your teammates are before you even consider engaging enemies. Me personally, I usually have a fuck bunch of HOTS slotted on my main bar and just one reliable burst heal. Doing things this way allows me to be able to sustain my magicka for much longer and allows me to keep my team alive more efficiently. Now, not much more needs to be explained here. It's quite self-explanatory. Okay, so now that we've finished talking about rule number 2 in your healing responsibilities, we get to rule 3, and that is cleansing negative effects from your team. This is an often underrated and underutilized aspect of PvP healing. You'll oftentimes find in PvP that you'll have several negative effects on your character during battle, which over time drains your health and resources to the point of where you can't do nothing and just drop dead. So definitely cleanse often. Now, some of these team cleansing skills include Cleanse from the PvP support skill line and the Cleansing Ritual from the Templar healing skill line. So now that we got to the top 3 most important responsibilities, it's time to get to number 4 and number 5, which in my opinion, you shouldn't even worry about until you've mastered the first 3. Now, I am in no way saying that these aren't important, but in my personal opinion, I feel like you shouldn't prioritize these in battles until you deal with the first 3 jobs previously listed. So let's get to responsibility number 4, providing resources for your team. This becomes increasingly important as fights continue to drag on, or if you're in a situation where your team has to constantly burst their spells. You want to be throwing down spells like the Healing Orbs from the Undaunted skill line or Luminous Shards from the Templar Adric Spear skill line, so your teammates can activate them and regenerate their resources. Now keep in mind, your teammates have to manually activate the synergies you throw down, so remind them every now and often to use them in case they're too preoccupied. And lastly, we get to rule 5, and that's buffing your team and debuffing enemies. If you have skills from your character class that allow you to buff your team, then use them right before you enter a battle, whilst keeping in mind the duration of that skill. If the buff runs out during a battle, be very careful in deciding whether to cast it again. You still want to make sure that keeping yourself and your team alive is the top priority, and if casting that spell means that you can potentially mess with that, then I would recommend not buffing again during a dangerous active PvP encounter. An exception is a skill from the Restoration Staff skill line, which is Blessing of Protection, which allows you to buff your teammates' damage and resistances while simultaneously healing them. Now, in terms of debuffing enemies, if you can do it from a safe distance and before you engage in battle, then do it. But chances are your team's DPS characters already have debuffs slotted on their character and locked onto enemies, so you don't really have to worry too much about these aspects. And that basically concludes the video. Your PvP healing responsibilities broken down and prioritized from the most important to the least important. Now notice how I didn't mention anything about having to do damage. I personally disagree with a lot of PvP healing videos out there that say an important job as a healer is to do damage. No, your fucking role is to heal. It's in the goddamn fucking name. It's as annoying as the tallest basketball player on your team shooting 3-pointers. Like, sure, it's nice and impressive you can do that, but we need your Bigfoot ass in the post, grabbing boards and jump hooking. Sorry in case that reference made absolutely no sense. I used to watch a lot of basketball back in the day before they went all political and shit. But again, thank you so much to my dozens of subscribers for tuning in. It is highly appreciated. I do these all for you guys. Happy New Year, everyone. And may your 2021 be blessed with gorgeous women and wealth.